his email that I'm sharing this with you because there will likely be a great amount of discussion in the community. There will be public hearings required, and I wanted to make sure you have a head start on information so you can educate yourselves on the plan. So I take the blame for not having seen that email the day after Christmas and properly communicating that. So I just want you to be aware that he did inform the commission. While we may not have deliberately discussed it, we were informed of it, and I just happened to have missed it.
My understanding is, if I might have one more minute, my understanding is the city manager was aware of this. He certainly was, because he wrote that letter on the 26th of December, just about 2 weeks after we decided that we would take over, we meaning the city, you decided that we would take over the permitting from the DEQ, which I gave a tactic approval of. If I'd known what I know now about how this seems to be working out, I would have been vehemently opposed to it, which I now am. And I think the we is sort of like the imperial we, isn't it? The royal we. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
And I did voice or concur with you on the request for a public hearing and contact Ms. Kincannon about that, and also it suggested that it be held at the Great Lakes Naval Memorial and Museum, since it's nearby the site and it can accommodate quite a few more people than this room can. I hope she takes that into consideration. I did speak with Frank last week briefly, about this matter, and he informed me that he had voiced a desire for there to be public hearings, and that we would be supportive of this conditionally, that it meets statute with regard to protection of critical dunes. And so I wish you had pointed me to the email last week when we spoke, so I wouldn't have misspoke.
Sorry.
But I'm to blame for not having seen that email and then subsequently misspeaking. So my apologies in that regard.
And if I just really quickly, from our standpoint, it was really just conceptually, I'm in agreement with the application, not that we're recommending that it absolutely is approved, not that we would have no other discussion points even outside of this, because even if it's approved, we have lots of decisions to make here at this body level, at the planning commission level. How wide is, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made, and I'm sorry that people maybe feel left out, but this is like the very beginning of the process. So people are brought in at the absolute beginning of the process. Yeah, I had that in my hands. Maybe I just went through my emails. So about almost a week before that is when Scott Musselman asked me to look at it and give a letter of support. So I took about a week to review it and wrote the letter, knowing full well that we would have many opportunities. That was just, again, the starting point. So I don't think people should feel left out. They're in it at the very, very beginning. The only way they could be in it more is if they were with the Sand Products folks when they developed the plan. Otherwise, they're in it from the very beginning before any decisions are made.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Gregory Roberts, regarding this very same issue.
Gregory Roberts, 3340 Wilcox. If you look at the plan map, in parcel C, if you will go down Wilcox, parcel C happens to be in my backyard. You're talking about a projected area, critical dune area that is there for a reason. If we would not have been contacted, this would have gone through. I just need you to hear this. By this letter, and if we wouldn't have had people in place, this would have gone through. Without any comments, it would have just gone through. That was per them. That's what they said. Also, I'm waiting for a phone call from the Attorney General, because I am seeing a trait here with this commission that there's millions of dollars and stuff going on, and if there's millions of dollars to build convention centers and stuff like that, then maybe we need to revisit the city income tax, which my lawyer said that it would be an uphill battle to do that, and you guys would have to have the final say-so in that, but at least you guys would have to explain what the hell's going on.
Commissioner.
I guess I'm writing, so when you make an application to the DEQ, the next step is for them to notify the adjacent property owners. That's what I thought the ordinance that we went over said. So they were notified. So when you apply, the people next to it are going to be notified. So that's the normal process.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell people you're going to get a notification from the DEQ, but when someone submits an application like this, you're going to get a notice. So I'm assuming that we presumed that people are going to get a notice, and it's going to say what we heard about in the critical dune ordinance. If people have a comment, they'll get a chance to make a comment. There'll be a public hearing, and if they don't make a comment, then they must not have an opinion on it and are okay with it, I guess. So that's the process. So I'm trying to understand. When you make so for these residents here, no one's trying to subvert the fact that they were going to get notified, and no one's saying that it was going to be approved without their consent. They were going to have notification of it through the process. Mm-hmm. Is that a correct understanding?
Correct. And even if there were no comments, it would still have its normal full review from the DEQ and be approved or not approved based on the merits of the application
Which are
itself.
Basically a lot of technical things having to do with sand and measurements and the characteristics of dunes.
Yep. And if you remember, even if we did adopt a critical dune ordinance, even if it wasn't in place right now, which it's not because we have that 180-day waiting period, this is one that would still follow through that process. It would still go to the DEQ because
was my understanding.
it's
the
a street.
Size of it or whatever. There were certain characteristics where the local critical dune ordinance does not prevail. It's going to the DEQ no matter what. I'm going to follow this process.
It'll follow the same comment period, same requirements that they have to, and it gets submitted to them for them to do a review of it as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so the safeguards are there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mr. Mike McCann?
Oops. My name is Mike McGann, 17 East White Lake Drive. I'm a member of the fire department. I didn't really plan on speaking tonight. I more wanted to attend just to see what the tone was of my future, my department's future. But with the tone I was seeing tonight, I just felt I needed to come up and clear the air with a few things. So one thing I haven't heard asked was, where did the money go? The city's not poor. No one's really asked, where did the money go for the $900,000 that was supposed to be cut from the fire department? I mean, we have an idea, we know, but we can't reach those levels that everybody, in one breath you guys are saying we need. You're agreeing with us. I mean, we're not asking for more money. We're not asking for more benefits. We're not asking for anything other than manpower to protect this city. That's it. And I hear that tone from you guys, and that's great. But the questions I believe you're asking aren't, I don't think you know the questions to ask. It's not an insult. It's just, I'm trying to get it out there, though, that with that said, where'd the money go? That's the main thing. Because if you put it back, we can hire. We can do this. But if you don't, with the presentation, well, there's many holes to poke in that, but with that presentation, there's no way to reach the numbers that you guys would like to see that way without going to a consolidation. That's something you guys are going to have to work on yourselves, but it's just we're doing our best on our side to work through this. I get hearing the fact that we need to give up our vacation. Okay, I'm not going to stand here and say that I want more vacation. I don't. I get 12 days a year. These hours you're seeing, these ridiculous hours, I get 12 days a year. Okay, I get 6 sick days. I earn them throughout the year. I don't believe that any of you would think that was ridiculous when you hear it that way. When you see those hours, it's because when I take a day, it's 24 hours. It's not 8 hours because I work a 24-hour shift. So that's where those hours come from. And then the overtime, the whole working through and guys taking time off I see on there and working the system to work overtime, that's absolutely untrue. Those guys that take the day off, they don't get overtime until it goes through. They're the last resort. okay? There's 2 shifts off. We have 3 shifts. And we're down to 9, 9, and 8 right now. And you had said that we were at 9 today. You had provided 9 firefighters for the city today. That's inaccurate. We're at 8. The shift today is 8. So the numbers are just skewed, and I just ask you guys to start getting into them and really questioning them. Look at them. Talk to us about them. Talk to other sources about them. Because there's a lot of questions out there, a lot of information that I don't want to see. I believe you guys have good hearts. I believe you guys want the best for the city. I believe you guys want the best for us. And I just need to know that you guys are going to look more into it. Like he had said, peel the onion. There's a lot more to look at. Patrick Taylor here, he's one of the guys, he's the son of one of our captains. There's a number on there that was completely skewed. And it was turned, most of the stuff is turned against us. There's the trade of time that was on there. They included in guys off, hurting the city. We trade time to help the city. It doesn't cost the city a penny. Lieutenant Weeper back there, he was scheduled to go on a mission trip with his daughter. And his vacation got canceled, like just before it. So I was off there during that time. I worked for him for nothing, so he could go, because it was canceled. That's what we do. There's a lot of that goes on. It's not we're taking, and not giving, okay? But back to Patrick, going back to the skewing the numbers, there's a presentation on there about one guy during the summer that took the summer off and worked this many days and this many hours, or it cost the city this much overtime, okay? His dad is one of the most dedicated firefighters you have, okay? It cost, and I want to thank you, Patrick, for all the time you sacrificed for this city, because those are days you didn't get with your dad. He came in, it went through the whole department because guys were busy, on vacations, whatever. And Mark's like, well, I don't want to see it go down to unsafe levels. I'll come back, I'll come in. But that's the okay? Because it happens at 6:30 that morning. It's not I can just cancel it a week before. We don't know. Guys get sick. It's a strenuous job. We're around sick people all day long. I'm surprised we're fortunate enough right now, the flu. No one's gotten the flu yet. But with the staffing we have right now, we're so low that if we did get the flu, it's going to affect this station because we live together, okay? Guys are going to be off. And I'm afraid these numbers are going to be used this way against us. We're at 899. We have a number of guys retiring this year. A number of guys retiring. So that 899 is going to drop dramatically. And guess what? Is next year's presentation going to be, we'll look at the numbers in, we tried to cure the overtime in 18, but they just astronomically went up. Well, yeah, because no one's hiring. You guys aren't hiring anybody to replace these bodies. So it's going to happen. All right. But anyway, sorry if I rambled, but I didn't prepare to talk to you guys. But I hope what I told you helped a little bit.
No, appreciate the input. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to address the commission? No? Commissioner?
I move we adjourn.
Oh, sorry.
We didn't get the opportunity as commissioners to present other business. Can we have that opportunity?
We didn't. Commissioner Owen.
I skipped that. Well,
Is the chief still here? Wonderful. Lot of frustration from the community. It's totally switching gears. Lot of frustration from the community about sidewalks. Sidewalks not being shoveled, and feeling helpless about that, and feeling frustrated about that, and holding residents and business owners and everybody accountable so that we can have an accessible city. Especially, there's been even more frustration when it comes to being able to access bus stops. And so I was hoping you could speak to that. I know it's something we've talked about before, but when it comes to what that process looks like, what that ordinance enforcement looks like, where to call, what to do, so that people can get around our community.
Up tonight anyway.
It should be a problem now, since the big thaw. But when we were inundated with that snow and that exorbitant cold weather that we had, to be honest with you, there was hardly any, if no, enforcement. The downtown was, we have a mechanism downtown to keep those sidewalks and curb cuts open and things. And it being a resident of the city, I was doing pretty good till about the middle of December, and then it just hit so hard. And I noticed that I was having difficulties, and around the city, that was the theme. We're going to have to regroup, and we're going to have to take care of that, because we noticed that during that cold snap and that large amounts of snow, there was a lot of sidewalks that were not accessible, and you were absolutely right.
Well, and I guess in that, because I can understand that maybe it's not feasible to drive around and be enforcing that, but when complaints are coming in, whether it's business owners, whether it's landlords, do we have a complaint system of?
Yes, we had before. You can call in the police department or records bureau. In the past, that's how we handled it. I personally have not received one complaint about this, but yet I saw a lot of the sidewalks were not shoveled. But there again, we were having some major parking issues, and we were giving relief to the residents because they couldn't even retreat to the terrace. They couldn't even get their driveways open. And so, Commissioner Johnson, we talked about that, I think, at the first commission meeting in January. The difficulties of snow was presenting to all of us. And unfortunately, sidewalks were probably a lower priority than that, simply because we couldn't even get cars in driveways or on terraces or even in vacant lots to get off the streets, so our DPW could actually, clear those streets. We've had our thaw, we've had our breath now, and I will make sure that we put something together so that our next snowfall, we are back on task of getting those sidewalks clear.
Yeah, and if I could piggyback on that too, we have been talking a little bit internally. Now that we've gotten a little bit of history underneath us, we've got some equipment that we haven't had in the past. We've got some employees that have cleared snow off the sidewalks, because we've got some, like I said, we've been doing the downtown now for 2 years, or this might be the third year we're doing it. So we've talked a little bit at the DPW level as far as maybe next year we can pick some of our more heavily walked parts of our neighborhoods and see if we can do almost like a pilot program where we can maybe do some snow removal while we have the equipment out, and just really wrap our arms around what that looks like and what that costs to do, on a more consistent basis. Because what we did find was it's really hard to enforce, because even our ordinance gives you like 24 hours after the end of the snowfall. And sometimes, like Chief said, it snowed for like 4 days straight. So technically, you're not in violation until 24 hours after that stopped, which is the 5th day. And then if it starts snowing again, you're starting back all over. But typically, then we would give you notice, and then you have 24 hours to cure it. So it's really hard. It's very difficult certain times of the year. So the thought was maybe we can start to get our arms around what it looks like for us to do certain parts of the community where people walk more than just for leisure, if that makes sense.
Trunk lines where the buses are and stuff.
Right, where the buses are.
Trunk lines.
So we don't know exactly what that'll look like, but we think we want to give it a shot maybe next year and try to push maybe into whether it's the Nelson neighborhood or McLaughlin, where we know people walk to get to and from places for work or for bus stops and things like that, and just see what we can do.
Well, and in the handbook, it says about reporting violations to the planning department's code inspector.
Yep.
So is that still, because I think you mentioned the police.
A lot of times we took those complaints at our records bureau because we had more staffing there.
Okay.
And that's where they came into, and then we would disseminate that information to the proper places to help remedy. But since we're on this topic, we do have an ordinance, and it is the responsibility of all the residents in town to clean those sidewalks in front of them. And since we're visiting it now, I think that's important that all the residents know we have to work together to keep those sidewalks clean and clear. And we also, back when this snow hit, our fire department asked for assistance again from our citizens, like we have in the past during those heavy snows, to help us with the hydrants, to identify them and help clear them. So I know the guys have been out trying to clear those, and it becomes, I believe we have 2,500 plus fire hydrants. So obviously we're talking about staffing today. It's a little difficult for that staff to get out there and clear those hydrants. So sidewalks and hydrants are really important, and especially when we got nailed there in December and early January. We've had our thaw now. It's pretty much all gone except till today. But we can reset and start now to finish out our next 6 or 8 weeks of winter. So.
So to clarify, violations should be reported not to what's listed in our handbook.
Yes, you could
That
call
needs to
there
be
first.
updated? Oh.
Go there first.
Okay.
But to take those extra calls, a lot of people were calling into our records desk.
Okay.
Of 6750, and then they would report that, and it would be disseminated to wherever we could to help remedy it.
It essentially goes up to planning to Hope.
Yeah.
And then Steve, now that he's back from his deployment, will do the inspections and she'll take care of the compliance.
Yeah, Chris, we also have the help desk. You can email that stuff in. We have different mechanisms, and that gets disseminated to the right people, too.
Right.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I got good news on that.
Yeah,
Can I address that?
sure.
Hey, I got good news. I'm not griping. What we do in Bluffton, in the Bluffton neighborhood, is we acknowledge the people that go out and blow snow. So we all take turns blowing snow of all the neighborhoods. And what we have is a number, a telephone number or email number to email if you see a neighbor or somebody else that's out there that's taking care of hydrants or doing something, to let that person be acknowledged, and that's working out well.
That's cool.
Great idea.
Yeah, thanks.
And
That
actually-
happens on our block, too.
And actually, if I could too, Greg reminded me when he said that, we have the Adopt a Lot program for the vacant lots at least. We're in the discussion point of maybe those actually extend to be year-round adoptions for a little bit more money, and then people are taking care of the sidewalks as well as so that'll get a few more of them taken care of as well.
I know in some neighborhoods, including my own, whoever gets up first and has their snow blower, usually does the whole block down, and if they're really generous, my drive approach gets blown out too, so that's always great. So I got a nice Bordeaux I hand out. Anything else, commissioners?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to speak to, what's that? Yeah, I know, it's getting late, so I won't drone on or belabor it.
Oh, the hell you won't.
But you know me too well. No, I just want to speak about the financial question as to where I'm coming from. I'm not speaking for the commission, not speaking for the city manager, but in terms of the finances of this with regard to fire department staffing and why we did in our budget propose a nearly $700,000 cut for this fiscal year. That was certainly not my expectation that we were going to be laying off half the force. That's not why we cut $700,000, and we actually emphasized that at our meeting. The staff level still says 35. You're still authorized for 35. We're hoping to find cost savings and efficiencies to realize that reduction. But I will say why I'm concerned about the financial situation. I hear, well, you got $8 million or you got $6 million. It fluctuates depending on whether or not you're including the emergency stabilization fund or not. But yes, in total with the stabilization fund, we have roughly $8 million in general funds available to us. However, if we were to maintain the status quo with regard to how we operate the city, including the fire department, with projected revenues and expenses, we're looking at depleting that entire balance in 5 years. And that is frightening to me.
For now.
And that's frightening to everyone, I believe, on this commission. And it should be frightening to our citizenry that we face the prospect of a depleted general fund in 5 years. That is not fiscally prudent. It's not healthy. You need to have a healthy fund balance. One, to have a good credit rating so that we can bond when we need to bond, whether that might be for a new fire truck or that may be, roads or something else that's very pressing that needs to be done. Our convention center, ultimately, we're going to bond in because we have a fairly good credit rating. We're able to get that at a lower interest rate. Ultimately, that convention center is not going to be getting paid by us. We're bonding. We're using our full faith and credit to bond it, but is a public-private partnership with Parkland Properties and the county, and the county is actually backing it up. We're using our credit, but the tentative plan is for the county to be the backstop in case Parkland Properties self-assessment and the regular accommodations tax can't cover the cost of the convention center. So really, it's quite a ingenious structuring, I believe, in this partnership, in which that we're able to build this convention center using non-tax dollars. We're just having to use our credit to get there and get it backstopped by the county in the event that accommodation taxes don't support it. So it's not like we're shifting $1 million, you know, when we approved the $900,000, nearly $832,000 tonight for the AE Progressive, it's not like, well, we just shifted that from the fire department, we're going to give it to them to do this contract. Ultimately, we're being reimbursed for that through the accommodations tax. We do have it. We do have it, and that's the importance of having a healthy general fund, not running a bare bones general fund. You have to have it. When emergencies happen, when needs happen, we have that flexibility to make those critical investments to stabilize our long term. Like, people see these investments that we do, whether it be Midtown or whether it be the convention center or it might be the retail chalets, and like, why are you throwing money at that? Why are you throwing money at that? Why are you throwing money at that? We've got issues here, we've got issues here, but these are long-term investments being made into our community. It may not seem sensible in that moment, but to help ensure that we have the resources long-term to support our public safety, that's why we're doing it. And we're taking some risk in doing it.
And often from other funds outside of the, good portion of outside of the general fund.
Yes, not just the general fund. I mean, we've got excess money, you know, from the insurance company through the dividends from that we've used to, they weren't operating funds, they were one-offs that we used to make those investments.
And hopefully we don't get them totally depleted and we can replenish them.
Yeah, so we don't see that 5-year decline and depletion of our general fund. So that's just, I just want to give some context to where how I'm approaching it, how I'm viewing it, what is concerning to me. I don't want us to get to the point where our general fund is depleted. I also don't want to have inadequate public safety. So if the two are not, you know, jiving, then we need to bring that to our citizenry and saying, hey, this is what you need for adequate public safety. Our budget isn't really providing for that. So either we need to make cuts here, go without that, or raise taxes somehow. And so that's my approach to it, my understanding of it, just to give some context. So,
thank you.
And maybe give some insights to other people.
Appreciate that.
So,
Appreciate that. Anything else, commissioners?
I move we adjourn.
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Muskegon, supported by Commissioner Johnson to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Okay, good night.
Sorry about that, guys.
Good job, Frank.